We're in Henley upon Thames today to look at a textbook commercial to residential conversion scheme where the asset was bought at £200 per square foot and turned into something worth over £600 per square foot. Stay tuned for more. Hi, my name is Ranjan Bhattacharya. I've been investing in property for 30 years. We also run a whole bunch of training courses for people looking at getting into commercial property. Now, I'm here today with Satnam Bhuller, who has been on our 8-week training course on commercial property, and we're here to take a look at this wonderful deal, which is really as textbook as it gets. Satnam, thank you for inviting us down to show us around this amazing project. Now, you found this, it was a couple of weeks into the course, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was on your May course last year, and this came up at Allsops in July.
And that was right in the middle of COVID and all the rest of it, and slap bang in the middle of the course. So this was an auction purchase, and I love talking about auction purchases because with auctions, anyone could have had this deal. Yeah. They had to know, they had to vision what they could do with it, and that's what you were able to do. Yeah. So 526k purchase price. We show some pictures of what the deal is, but just talk us through what this was.
So this was a Santander bank downstairs, and upstairs was a chiropodist on the front two levels. So it was kind of a mixed commercial unit. There was a lease within the auction, which was within the 1954 Act, and there was current occupants within the building there. Santander had vacated the premises.
Yes.
So it was a bit of a mixed bag in terms of a concern about the lease and about the tenant in there at the time.
And it's lovely because it's vacant and occupied as well, with some ambiguities about the lease, which probably put a lot of people off at the auction.
Yeah. Well, there was certainly about 40 people on the viewing day who came along, and we were able to see the ground floor and the back end of the building, but not the entire building because the piece that was occupied wasn't available to us. So there was a lot of questions around what that might actually look like at the time.
Yes. I mean, that's obviously a classic because sometimes the existing occupant may be trying to buy it themselves and they don't want to show people inside the building and that kind of stuff. But that's just textbook throwing up a little bit of smoke to try to put people off the scent.
I think the lease was the biggest concern to people because it was within the 1954 Act. There was a lot of information that was missing, so the full puzzle wasn't available. So it was a question of really who's going to take the punt and what due diligence had they done to get to that point, to get to that number.
So what got you into, I mean, you're in the pharmaceutical trade yourself, management consultant and all of that. Why property? Why did you get into property?
Well, it's been a passion of mine for a long, long time. But when you've had a career which has been focused on taking up the vast majority of your time, I'm towards the end where I'm thinking about my future. And I've been doing something for 30 years. So I wanted to take the profits that we were making in our consultancy business and start to invest them, yes. But also diversify what I do. And hence why I went on your course. I'd seen loads of people on YouTube, done my research, and decided to take a course where I could understand far more about it. So that led me to you, and there I was in May on the course.
Now this is, I mean, you've certainly applied so many of the principles that we teach just in one deal. And that's why I said in the beginning, this is textbook, because there's so many bits of it, and we're going to kind of break those down for you a little bit. Now, one of the principles that we bang on about all the time is to buy as much square foot as possible for the money. And if it's vacant, if it's complicated by some leases and stuff like that, that's even better. So how much square foot did you buy here?
We've got, in the original building, we've got 2,600 square feet.
So we've got 2,600 square foot of space, and this is slap bang in the centre of Henley, and the Henley Regatta and all of this action going on. It's been a centre of activity for many hundreds of years. We've just seen the footfall in the street here. It's packed, really. So, I mean, it is a great, great spot. And now, what did you pick up? When you work out the cost per square foot, what did it cost you per square foot?
It's cost me £203 per square foot.
And the end residential value or the GDV value of that would be what?
It's going to be close to 650 per square foot.
Wow. So that's near trebling of value in a southeast location. Now, of course, we're not converting the whole building into residential. No. The ground floor makes sense to keep as commercial because of the vibe of the street. Yeah. And you've secured an interesting let there, haven't you?
I have, yes. So we've got a high-end cycle shop next door who were looking to expand. I was looking for a business that was local and that would be COVID-friendly going forward. So the natural thing was to allow that business to expand, and they're going to be the tenant downstairs.
So did they approach you because they knew it was vacant when they found out you're the new owner? How did that work?
Yes. So I just about got the building secured. I went to a local agent. Immediately they talked about the cycle shop next door, and that's how it started the conversation.
Fantastic.
It took about 6 months of discussion, but we're there.
So basically you've let the whole commercial ground floor space to the cycle shop next door because they're expanding. Yeah. And what we always say is the easiest way to add value to commercial property, which is vacant, is to shove a tenant in. Get that lease signed. So you've got a 10-year lease signed?
10-year.
10-year lease signed with that security of income for quite some time into the future. And then you can get a valuation based on the rent roll that you're generating. So that shop has been let out for
36,000.
36k. So that gives a valuation of roughly about 600k.
About 600. Yeah, it's about 6% yield in this area.
And then when you have actually baked that loaf of bread and it's all ready, and that commercial property, that asset is now made as a buy-to-let, commercial buy-to-let asset. It's that asset that we talk about on the course in terms of selling it to your pension. Yeah. Which basically, by selling that asset, just the ground floor shop to your pension, you can extract money from your pension, which basically pays for the deal. Yeah. And that's what you've done here, is it?
That's exactly what I've done. So I bought the premises, and then I sold the leasehold of the ground floor to my pension. So I've extracted money from my pension, and they're going to be actually managing the downstairs, and then I've got the upstairs under my freehold.
Now, we could actually stop this video here, because just what we've described is a stonking deal. But it goes on and on and on, doesn't it? Now, we do talk a lot about PD, and PD is great. Permitted development gives you some great opportunities, but there are certain sites, and we're looking at certain sites ourselves, where you have to make a call sometimes, whether PD will give you the best uplift, or whether there is actually a good chance of going in with planning permission for a better outcome. And that's what you've chosen to do on this scheme, to get a number of flats and also an extension at the back. So just talk us through how many flats we're getting up here.
Okay, so we're going to have 4 flats that I've managed to secure through planning. Initially, when I did the numbers on this deal, I just looked at one flat at the back and the shop, and the numbers tied up. The reason I didn't look at the front end of the building was it wasn't under Class G that I could convert that. Yeah. But I knew over time that that would be the next layer, so I'd get an additional 2 flats. So I've waited, gone through planning, and secured to have 4 flats.
Wow, that's pretty amazing, and probably something that you didn't know at the time that you bid, because because this is such a fantastic area, you're looking at serviced accommodation. But of course, the thing that you didn't know at the time was Rishi Sunak came along with his super deduction. So the expenditure that you're spending on creating these flats qualifies for 130% super deduction, or quite a lot of it does. So that's just an extra bonus, isn't it?
Yep. That's another discussion to have with my accountant, and how we manage to look at our books and manage that. Yep, but another piece of the pie.
We'll get back to the video in just a moment. What is the most exciting opportunity in property right now? And that is repurposing defunct commercial buildings to residential use. Now, most people don't really know where to start, what to look for, and how to exploit these opportunities. And that's why I've prepared 90 minutes of free training for you to get you started on this wonderful journey. You can register for this free training at property-workshop.com. Join me on that free training, and I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of the video. So we've got the shop let, we've got this planning for these flats, but it's going to go on because you're looking at extending on the roof space at the back. Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense, because in a lot of these shops and uppers, You have a traditional looking shop front, which you can see from the on this picture here. It's a traditional high street. It's very 1920s vibe. But there's a big extension at the rear, which is probably built in the 70s or something.
That's right, yeah.
And those are easy to extend upwards without impacting the look from the street. And that's what you've done, basically.
That's exactly why. So part of my due diligence when I looked at this building was not just look at what I had here when I was going to go to auction, but I went around the back, and there's another lane at the back. And when I looked at the properties, and I stayed here for about an hour and a half, I saw lots of people, residents, moving up and down. So clearly there's a residential component going on. 6 doors down, there was a PD of Brook House going on. So I knew there was opportunity to go beyond what we originally would be buying. And so hence why I went down the planning.
It's that local research, isn't it? Seeing what the precedents are in the area, so you don't kind of kite fly, but you're going with the vibe of what people have already done and just trying to match it, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus the benefit of Henley for me was I worked down the road for 10 years. So I knew Henley really well. I know the area really well. And I knew it was going to be one of those things, perfect location. So
now, I remember when you were on the course and you presented this deal at one of our deal analysis clinics. I said to you then, this was textbook. I mean, you had pretty much your exit. You'd covered your costs purely by the ground floor. Getting a tenant in the ground floor sorts everything out, and that's why I think it was worth taking the risk with the planning. Because in terms of your exit, you've exited out from the ground floor. So if you have a punt on the planning, you might as well. And then if you have to fall back or rein back, you can always fall back on the PD later on.
One of the benefits for this deal for me was there was no lending involved. So I could wait. I initially bought with a bridge, but that was very much a short-term bridge to allow cash flow. And as soon as that was out, I've just held the building until I could get planning.
Now, I know you've been obviously you've been on the training and you've been exposed to a lot of strategies and ideas and ways of doing things and that kind of stuff. But why do you think 40 people came round this site? And it went for reasonable money for Henley upon Thames. What didn't other people see, or why didn't other people see this? What do you think?
I can't really say. So when I did my numbers, and like I said originally, I just based it on the one flat because I knew under Class G I would get one. It's too small to convert into two, so it would be one flat. Based on those numbers alone, I thought I could pay up to 650 for this. So the only thing I can think of is that lease, that unknown of what this front end of the building would look like with a tenant in and trying to get them out because they were in the 1954 Act. I think that might have switched a lot of people off. But I was astounded that I managed to get it for 528.
It's brilliant. I mean, sometimes, you can be exceptionally lucky on the day. But I think there were a lot of issues with this property at the time. And I think in property, what I encourage everyone to do is you've got to equip yourself with the knowledge so that you can take educated punts. It's when people are really just flipping a coin and haven't got a Scooby-Doo where it's going to land. That's the problem. But what we're all about is taking educated punts on things. And I think everything that you've done is not a gamble at all. Because as I said, you covered everything from the ground floor anyway, which is a sure bet. So you had pretty much surety in that deal. What's next for you?
So I think just to build on that point, I've never been a gambler. So everything's a calculated risk, and I think you do your due diligence, you work your numbers, and then you go from there. So that's what I'm going to try to do with my next project. So I want to finish this, get this up and running, and then the same again, and then the same again. So my intention is probably to do one of these every year to 18 months, and then just build a portfolio through that, both within my pension in my SAS, and then in my building business.
And I think a lot of people get carried away with the SAS type thing, because the trouble with the SAS is it is in your pension. So the great thing about doing these shops and uppers is you can have a blend. You can park some of it in the pension, and you can keep some of it outside the pension so that you can actually have something to
And it gives me levels of protection in terms of there's a pension, there's a building business, and there's a consultancy business. So across them, I'm able to flex the revenues, the income, and manage investments appropriately. And that's what I'm trying to do.
So if people are watching this and are interested in learning about commercial property and are thinking about undertaking the commercial property training that we do, what would your advice be? Would you recommend it? What did you get out of it?
I think the biggest thing for me was understanding of the building blocks that are necessary for your thinking to be able to actually progress into this. A lot of people, I think, may go blindly because it looks easy, but actually getting proper training and understanding what the building blocks are, for me, is fundamental. And then there's lots more that you need to understand yourself and due diligence that you need to go through. But I think the course gave me the building blocks, being able to do the numbers, work out what a deal was good, when it was okay, and when it was really poor.
Yes. I mean, those are the key things, really. You've got to get those basics right. And then, as you say, you're not really taking a gamble.
Yeah.
Now, this has been a terrific project. Hopefully, we'll come back when it's a little bit more finished and we can have a look at, maybe we can check in. We can check in into the serviced accommodation space and spend a night here. But we'll certainly do a video here because I think this is going to be a fabulous project when it's built out. And I love the way you've sequenced everything. You've sequenced everything in a textbook way. Exit out of the commercial, absolutely key, and the rest you've kind of taken your time on through planning. So you've done this. This is as textbook as it gets. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon so you're notified when we upload new videos. Smash that like button. Let me know what you think about this project in the comments below. See you guys in the next video. Thanks very much, Satnam. It's been fantastic.
Thanks, Ranjan.